I'm trying to get this figured out. Hey everyone! Today, welcome to my YouTube. No. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of character designing. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright, let's get started. Hey everyone, so I'm going to be trying voiceover this time because I realized very quickly that I can't really draw and talk at the same time when I'm like really trying to concentrate on what I'm doing. So I figured I would just do the drawing and then kind of provide some commentary on it after the fact. So I'm drawing a character for a short film project that I'm collaborating on with a few other artists I know. And this character is a sort of personification of the moon. Um, the story is the Scottish folk tale, The Buried Moon. And in that story, the moon is this character, and she ends up leaving the sky and coming to the earth and getting in trouble. So I'm working on her, and she's kind of the main character. So I'm working on kind of figuring her design out. I've actually been working on her design off and on for probably since November or December. And this is where I'm at with it so far. This is kind of the basic shapes and elements I have going. And this has gone through many iterations, lots of sketches, which I should probably, I don't know, maybe I'll make a video at another point showing the different stages that led to this point. But I wanted to develop her further, especially this like cape poncho thing that has kind of emerged and entered her design because it's kind of a cool way to not only reflect her emotional state throughout the story, but also to kind of show the phases of the moon, like because she is supposed to represent the moon. So I'm kind of trying to figure out like how does that work? How will the shapes look? How can I make the character still look like she's functioning and can move and is posable and is alive, even though she's not exactly a human character. She's human like, but I decided to go with something a little bit more ethereal, a little bit more foreign, a little bit more not entirely human. So that's kind of what I'm exploring. I'm using a color erase pencil, so it's a colored pencil that is designed to erase a little better than typical colored pencils usually do. And in all honesty, with character designing, I tend to go pretty cheap with my materials. I feel like when you're character designing, you draw a lot of iterations of things, you try out a lot of ideas, and so I actually prefer to use really cheap, junky, um, supplies. But the color erase is a bit of an exception to that. They are a lot nicer. Okay, so here's where I'm trying out actually making a slightly different eye shape. I'm drawing in this little crown that's like the phases of the moon. So you've got like the full moon in the center and then like the half moons on the side and then the crescents on the very end. Anyway, color erase pencils. So color erase are kind of nicer and I like them mostly because I don't actually like graphite pencils all that much. I don't really like that gray color, the way it sort of mixes, especially with watercolor paint, and other people can make it look good. I've just never really liked it. So I ended up kind of like gravitating more towards color erase. But you'll see later on in this video that I definitely use like cheap ballpoint pens, like the kinds you get from the bank or, for free in some promotional thing for my character designing. Okay, here I am drawing out like the moon phases to kind of give myself a bit of a reference point of like, what do they look like? What shapes am I aiming for? Um, what do I kind of want to represent in her poses? Um, and I also in my sketchbook I have a few studies there that I had done previously that I'm kind of referencing, and I really like this kind of drawing where she's all curled and kind of hunched over. That's kind of a dark, like her darkest moment in the story, and I really liked that kind of doodle I was going for. So I'm basically working to recreate that, and I especially like the way that I'm trying to get her cloak to like basically like blot out all of the light that's radiating from her. And it's kind of like when the moon is in like a new moon phase, there's no light coming from it. And so I'm kind of representing her in her greatest distress as like all of her light is pretty much gone and she's just totally wrapped in this like dark cloak. So I'm kind of trying to play with the shapes of making her look like a figure who's actually hunched down, but try to get it to look as circular as I possibly can. I feel like the arms still need a little bit of work, but we'll get there. Um, so anyway, yeah, I was trying to think what I was saying before that. Yeah, so this project it's actually been a little bit on hold. The artists when we were working on this back in the beginning of December, we kind of decided we needed to take a break from it because we just had so much going on, and with the holidays and everything, that we decided to kind of put it on hold for a bit. Um, but I was thinking about it recently, and I still have tons of things going. But I was thinking, hey, like I don't know, I kind of wanted to get the project like do a little bit with it, not maybe a full amount of commitment, but I thought, well, let me just draw the character again. So I was kind of enjoying revisiting the character, and then today I thought, like, well, let's try making a video since I haven't actually done any drawing videos yet. So I decided like this would be kind of a cool way to try that out. So anyway, yeah, so here I am kind of working on that shape of trying to communicate her feeling sad and like diminished and like at her lowest point, and also to try to get that shape as round as I can to kind of show that sort of very new, like that dark new moon sort of phase. So that's what's going on right here, and apparently I'm working very hard to get the edge just right. So yeah, this is the point where I decide to switch to a cheap bank ballpoint pen. Yeah, I don't know. I think I found this while helping to clean out our local YMCA, and the director there were a whole bunch of these pens, and most of them still worked. So the person in charge was like, "Yeah, sure, you can take them. It's fine." So it's just nice to have supplies that you aren't too precious with. That's what's so nice about cheap pens when you're character designing. Because, like I said before, you draw the character so many times and you get it wrong so many times that it's just nice to not feel like you're wasting valuable, expensive pens or expensive paper. So, that's kind of been my philosophy is like start out with like when you're character designing and you're not sure what your thing's going to be, start out with your cheapest like pens and pencils, and I sometimes draw on like lined notebook paper to kind of really make it so that it's not anything fancy or precious. And I think it also kind of gets me in a lighter mood a little bit. It's like when you're a kid in elementary school or middle school and you're just drawing like on your homework pages or your notes pages in school because you're bored, and there's a little bit of like lightness, and when you're just drawing for fun at that point in your life, and so it's nice to kind of recapture that a little bit with your supplies in a weird way. So now I'm adding a bit of marker to try to add some shading. I'm not sure if this was the right choice. I thought about using just black, and that might have been better. This is kind of like a dark blue, and I don't know, it's okay, but I don't know, black might have been better. It also might not have been the right choice to try to shade this in with such a dark marker, but I wanted to try it out. So trying to kind of leave a little bit of, I don't know, some of the light, like the lightness of the drawing underneath, to kind of so that it's not just one undefined shape. But I'm not super great at that, so I kind of struggle a little bit with it. But I think it's okay, and I think you still get the idea of the pose and what she's doing. So yeah, that's kind of her in her like darkest period. And then it occurred to me that I hadn't really drawn her in this moment of like in kind of when she is getting into trouble the first time, because in the story, the moon hears about how dangerous this like bog is on the earth, and so she leaves the sky. And I think this was the part where my dog was barking and I was telling her to be quiet. Anyway, so she comes down, the moon comes down to the earth to sort of see how, like, if the bog is really as bad as she's heard it is, and she ends up getting stuck in the bog. And these, like, the sort of the darkness and the forces of the bog kind of pull her down and trap her, and that's why she's kind of, they bury her literally, and her light goes away. And it's not until some of the other characters come and help to free her that she's able to escape. But I realized I hadn't really tried to draw that moment when she's being trapped, when she's being pulled down. And so I decided, like, to try seeing if I could express that feeling of, like, she's pulling away, trying to get back up to the sky, but she has all these things that are pulling her down, and they're stronger. And so and I also wanted to try, you'll see in a minute, I wanted to try to represent, like, again, with the cloak and the moon phases with that. So that was also what I was thinking about in the middle of the pose. So yeah, two things I'm trying to convey here, kind of the storytelling aspect of how she's feeling, what's going on in this moment, and then also using her cloak, her to kind of visually communicate that a little bit. So there's a lot of, like, dark in her cloak. And there's just this little sliver, because I'm imagining the way her cloak is drawn, there's, like, as I showed in some of the earlier drawings, there's this, like, dark edge and then this sort of light underside aspect, like the outer part is, like, dark and the under part is light. So in this particular moment, the outer part that's all dark is more visible and covering more of her, and there's just this little slim layer of light, like a crescent moon, like, it's kind of foreshadowing that her light is about to be distinct, like, diminished in this moment. And so that I was trying to figure out what pose and shape would work to communicate that. And I think I actually, like, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it was a little tricky, but I think it works. I think it does a good job. So that's kind of, right now I'm trying to get the legs kind of tied up a little and, worked out. And then drawing a little bit more of these sort of boggy, dark hand things that are, like, grabbing her, pulling her down, trying to, like, block out her light or eat her light or whatever. And then going in for the expression. Trying to draw a properly distressed expression. It's amazing when you draw, like, someone being upset. I almost always find that you need to push the expression. You need to especially push the mouth even more. Like, I probably could have pushed this expression even more, and when I go back with the ink, I end up making the mouth even more exaggerated. But I mean, what I have right now, she looks a little bit distressed, but not quite as distressed as I want her to seem. So I was even just then kind of touching up bringing the corners down a little more. So it's funny how that is, because I always, like, I'll draw something, like, I'll try to draw a distressed mouth or a certain mouth shape to communicate an emotion, and a lot of times I'm like, I should push that further. So now I'm going in with the ink, inking in her moon phase, like, headpiece, which I feel like always stays the same. It's a little bit of a smaller detail, and sometimes I haven't quite got the shapes all figured out yet, but I kind of like it because the rest of her design is really simple, which is good because this is going to be animated, and I feel like you want a really simple character to be able to animate, but I wanted to put in a little bit, and I thought the moon phases thing was cool. It kind of shows the fact that it kind of foreshadows or represents the different phases she goes through. So at this point in the design, I'm keeping it in. I mean, at some point we might end up losing it, but yeah, see, there I go, kind of pulling the mouth down even more, giving her an even more distressed expression. Yeah, that was a little more what I was looking for. And then trying to kind of get these shapes to still communicate that the pose and the distress, while also kind of smoothing them out a bit. That's been kind of the interesting thing about this character, is getting her limbs don't behave like human limbs, and I'm kind of using that to my advantage to allow me to communicate, like, more about, you know, the phases of the moon and the phases she's going through without needing to have like all the accurate elbow bends and knee bends and all that stuff when like every single time I draw her. Sometimes I add it for extra realism, but I'm a little selective, as you can see. And again, all this might be subject to change. The interesting thing about character designing at this stage is that like this might not be what the final product looks like. So it's just kind of an initial attempt at figuring out where the project is going to go and, you know, what the character could be like. And it'll probably change and evolve like as other people work on it and, you know, as it gets animated, that sort of thing. But this is sort of where she's at right now. So yeah, going in with, I decided this time to just use the ballpoint pen instead of the marker because I felt like it was a little bit less harsh, I guess. So I went ahead and did that. And then I felt like that was kind of a sad place to end the video, so I thought I need to draw something else, not just this, because this is just a little bit, I don't know, this is a little sad. So I thought about, well, what could I draw? And in my sketchbook above, on the, oh yeah, first I wrote some notes to myself about like the different phases and stuff. But I decided to draw, the last pose I'm going to draw is actually a pose I drew in my sketchbook that's above this paper. And that's her kind of in her like full glory when she's like been freed from the darkness. And I might even turn the page. Yeah, I think I'm thinking about it right now. But anyway, so I draw her kind of in this like full, when she's been freed from the darkness, and the story is like at the end of the story when her light just like she's able to shine at her full brightness. So yeah, I don't turn the page. Anyway, so I decided to kind of draw that pose again to kind of see, again, flesh it out, see what it would look like, see if I can make her pose be as much like a full moon as I could. So I have her arms like all the way above her head, you know, she has her legs kind of like stretched out in this very triumphant stance. She's sort of in her full glory at this point, even more so than when she was at the beginning of the story. Her cloak is like, it's all that bright under stuff. There's none of the dark left at all. Again, this cloak doesn't have to behave like a normal type of cloak because it's a little more symbolic, which is, again, a nice perk with drawing something in this style. So anyway, yeah, she's just full glory, full moon. This is kind of like the height of her strength when she's just radiating light everywhere. And yeah, I've drawn in the little moon phase headdress thingy, trying to get the face. And this is one of those moments where I went a little too big with the mouth, and I was like, that looks derpy. I think this time I was like, I don't really love that. So I ended up erasing it and going a little smaller with the mouth, which maybe that's okay. Maybe I should do it differently. I don't know. Again, the great thing about this phase of like figuring things out is that it doesn't have to be final. It's just kind of, you're just trying ideas out and you haven't settled on anything. So here she is. She's still triumphant, but her mouth is a little less huge, which I kind of like a little bit better. So yeah, trying to fill the neck in. And then I've tried to mess around a little bit with whether she should have hair, because it does seem a little bit stark. Her head is just this sort of single sort of baldish circle. So I've been kind of messing around with what the little like hair tendril or hair locks look like. I'm not settled on that again. So it's just an idea I'm playing with. I was trying to sort of represent the a little bit of like the halo of the moon. Because her design, I in many ways tried to represent the moon itself, and that's why her face is so round, like, you know, the sort of roundness of the full moon. So yeah, just now at this point sort of trying to shore up the lines, fix any little bits that seem kind of like weird to me. Making a note about what part of the story she's in. And then I think I go, yeah, more and more. It's amazing how much you can spend just noodling your lines. Yeah, and then I go in with the ballpoint to just kind of tie it all up. It's nice to have the ballpoint pen to just go over the pencil lines and give them a little more structure. I know some people can get on just fine with just pencil, and maybe I need to just grow in this and be better about it, but I always enjoy adding the line art and making my drawing feel a little more solid. Sometimes you run the risk of killing the drawing entirely because you kind of, for some reason, suck that like some of the life out of it somehow. I'm not even exactly sure how. Sometimes you can avoid it and it looks great, and other times it's like eh. But I do like to add the line art just to give it some solidness. So I'm going in with my cheap bank ball point pen, and yeah, kind of tying it down, getting the shapes figured out, getting that kind of full moon shape going as best I can. And then I kind of went in and add these sort of like halo, like wondered what it would be to add these sort of halo lines, sort of radiate, like what would her light radiating out look like. And I don't know if this idea will stick either, but I was just kind of messing around like what would happen if there's this sort of like rounded halo effect. Which I don't know if that communicates as much the outward direction or the strength as much as I wanted, but then I went back in with a marker to try to see if adding some darkness would help. And I don't really know if this helped that much. As I was doing it, I was like, I feel like maybe this wasn't the right choice, but oh well, it's fine. It's just an exploratory sketch. So I decided to commit and just go add the rest of the sort of night sky with the radiating light around it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I'm still pretty happy with the pose overall. So anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye!